Hello everyone. In this video, I will go over the three concepts of embedding SQL programming codes. So we said that in order to have embedding code in SQL, we always look at three concepts. We have functions, stored procedures, and triggers. Each of them have a different purposes. So now let's look at the functions, stored procedures, and the triggers. Majority of time, the functions and stored procedures are conflicts, and majority of the people they think that function and stored procedures are same, where it is not. Both of them have a different purposes. So, what are the differences here? This is something you will be doing in your labs, in your exercise also, and I will be explaining to you now. So now let's look at the purpose of the function. So whenever we are saying that the purpose of the function, it is always used in order to execute or compute the attributes or parameters. We use a parameters in the functions. The parameters are mainly an attributes which we have created in our tables. Okay, so we can compute them. How we can compute them? So if you remember in a week 6 and 7, we talk about aggregation functions. So we said we have aggregation functions which can be count, which can be sum, which can be average, min, max, and so on. Okay. So these are the aggregate functions which we have used earlier, and it can be used whenever we want to create a functions and want to have an aggregate function or any type of computation, we create a functions. Okay. This is the main purpose of it. Both, all three are a piece of code, or we say that it's a block of code, which is mainly used for the purpose of the reusability. So all three is used in order to perform certain tasks again and again instead of you writing it yourself or inserting yourself the information, updating or deleting. It will be done by using these functions, by using the store procedures, or automatically through the triggers. Okay, so all of them are block of code. So that's why I'm just looking at the purposes of each of them first. So now, what is the purpose of the stored procedure? So for stored procedure, the purpose here is that we need to execute our SQL queries. It can be select, insert, update, and delete. Whereas in the functions we only use select statement. Apart from this, there is one more differences are here. So whenever we are using functions, function always returns our parameters. We call these parameters and attributes in databases. Okay? Such as last name and first name. This is something which we are doing in our lab today. Whereas in stored procedure, we do not have any returns. So no returns are there. So here we are mainly talking about the syntax of our stored procedures and the function. So there will be no returns in the stored procedures, where in the function there will be a return. There is one more differences in terms of syntax or the way we call these functions. So as we are saying that the functions and stored procedures are mainly used for the reusability, which means we do not have to keep writing the code again and again. We just write the code once as a block of code and we can keep using that for different relations, for different tables, for different entities. So that's why we have to create these functions and stored procedures. These all concepts which I'm covering now is briefly, and we will cover more in detail later on term 3 ACID 3910. Okay. So what is the third difference here? The third difference here is mainly about that how you call the function. Once we have created a function, how we can use them. So in order to use a function, first of all, we use a select statement. We give each functions or each stored procedures triggers have a name. Same like whenever we are creating a tables, we give it a name. In the same manner, we give a name to our functions. We give it a name for the procedures and the triggers. So as we have given a name to a function, so we have to write a function name which we have given to our function. Parenthesis, the parameters we have specified in our functions. Maybe we have one parameter, maybe we have two parameters, depending on how many parameters we have. Okay. then from, and the table name. Okay. So this is how you can call your function or use your function. How you can use a stored procedure? You can use your procedure by, again, we always, as we mentioned, the function need to have a name. Same manner, the procedure need to have a name as well. So how we can call it? We use a clause called as a call, as we have given a name to a procedure. So for example, a procedure name is anything. So I'm giving it a procedure name, parenthesis, semicolon, and inside the procedure names, we have to mention a parameters we have specified in our procedures. So these are the main differences between both of them. So in case if you want to do insert, update, and delete, you would offer the store procedures and you don't want to return any values. Here you want to return your values, you will offer the functions, and the main differences is the computation of your parameters. Now for the triggers. So now what is a trigger here? So for the triggers are mostly used, so as we mostly use whenever we want to create, or based on certain action we want to have certain outcomes. So we are saying that we have some actions and these actions should have certain outcomes. In the same manner, in English we say the triggers, which means certain actions leads to, or certain action leads to certain outcomes or consequences. Same manner in databases, we have certain actions in terms of insert, update, and delete, and we need to have certain outcomes. So what will be the outcome should be. So we have to decide based on our criteria or business rules that what will be the outcome should be. So now the triggers consist of two types of, there are two types of triggers. One is before and second one is after. Before means we say the before one as proactive, which means before any action take place, what should be the consequences or outcome. Whereas the after is mainly a reactive, which means after certain action, what should be the output. So now here I will give you now example. So mainly whenever we have before trigger, we mainly use whenever we want to do computations or calculations, such as salary need to be greater than 2000. So it should be a salary. Salary need to be greater than 2000. So this is a before trigger. So if we have a more than 2000, what action should be carried out? Whether we have to give an error to a user, or we have to add, whether we have to insert a record into any of the tables, there are certain actions need to perform based on this criteria. Now for the after triggers, we mostly use whenever we want to create a log. So there are a number of examples are there. I'm just giving you one of them, which we are covering in today's lab also. So after trigger is mostly used whenever we want to create a log. So audit log. Audit log is like where we create a history of the modifications. So audit log, we are creating one table which is called as audit log. So any insert, update, and delete which is occurred in any table or you have specified by the table, it will reflect it into the audit log table. Okay. So which means we want to know who have made the changes and what changes have been made. In order to do that, we create a triggers. Trigger will identify whether it's insert, update, or delete on certain tables. You have to specify the table. What action you have to do, you have to insert a row or you have to insert information about the person who have made the modification, what changes he have made, and at what date or time as well. So this is a triggers.